think the last piece I was just going to add through chair is we're also seeing. I think the last piece I was just going to add through chair is we're also seeing there is a boards allocated money as well. So we're certainly looking at having the boards allocated money as well. So definitive guidelines around having some more definitive guidelines around how that money is utilized.
Thank you for that last piece, because I think thank you for that that last piece, because I think there's also we also have to be looking at sustainability.
That's better.
Particularly for
Sorry
the
about
annual events and where are they best placed. So that's helpful as well. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions on those items? Member Brillinger, you had a motion and some comments.
I do, and I did want
Right,
to...
Chair, I have a few questions.
Oh, sorry, forgot to look up again. Oops.
Yeah, my hand was up.
Councillor Chang, questions?
Sorry about that. Yeah,
Go
thank
ahead.
you. So I just was hearing something about how I think it was Mr. Stairs was mentioning that there would be a contact list that is being created so that we can have more diverse and direct engagement. Is that correct?
Yes, Councillor.
Yes. So actually, this is something that was raised also at our ARAP hosted board strategic plan consultation. And I wonder if there's opportunities that such a list could be a shared asset, because we have the same purpose, which is, to serve the best board, the best police force. And so would that be something that we could work on together? Because I think it was identified that getting a list of contacts of a diverse community organizations that have an interest in working towards better representation and better input into the future of policing, that this is a shared interest.
Chief? Did you want to answer that first?
I mean, I think what I'll say is, the service is committed to doing everything we can to enable the board's mandate. I think in the area of consultation, there is a discussion to have to make sure we're not getting ourselves into our own echo chamber. There is some unique needs the board has that may not be the same as the service needs. And where they do intersect and where it does make sense, of course, we will do everything we can to enable each other's success in that regard. But I do want to just flag, I think there's, a discussion to have in practical terms, depending on how this all comes together. There's probably a need to have some separate consultative capacity, given the unique role of governance versus operations.
Thank you. And I'd like to know.
Okay. I thought Mr. Stairs had a follow-up. No problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions. So with regard to all of these committees, has there been a meeting of all the committee leads together to talk about their best practices as well as shared learnings?
I'm turning it on. Anthony.
Thank you. If I'll address that question. So as unit commander of community partnerships, we obviously oversee a number of community programs and initiatives on behalf of the organization. And the community consultative committees, as well as the local CPLCs, fall under community partnerships. So we have regular touch points with all of the co-chairs and of these committees. We are able to discuss broader themes through the unit, and we often talk about providing consistencies across how they approach and address agenda items that are up for discussion. So yes, that does happen.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to recognize that, I know there's a lot of talk about inconsistency, but every community is so different. And what I see here are wonderful deep roots into different communities that show in different ways. And this is kind of a question and a comment in terms of, as we try to build out some kind of formula for consistency, my request would be that we ensure that there's still an acknowledgement of the unique context of each community, that would not try to force everyone into some model of engagement that would perhaps handicap us from having the diverse, deep roots that I see reflected in some of these reports.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, it is essential that we keep the autonomy within the groups, guiding principles for each of the consultative committees to consider, but they are very unique. They each bring a separate value when we're talking about broader policing issues and how the police and the community can co-develop and co-implement initiatives. So we absolutely maintain that as a priority where we want to keep that autonomy for these consultative groups.
Great, thank you. Those are all my questions.
I'll just ask
Almost
one
800
follow-up question though.
Homeless
with
people
respect to
died last year,
the question
and
of,
the police keep
the
asking for
sharing of
more and
lists.
more money.
And I think we got to be
Homeless
we do
people
have
died.
to exercise some
800.
caution there, because
in the city of Toronto.
who a community group presents their information to, they really have to be able to give permission.
These guys
if
want
we're
money
gonna,
for barbecues.
jump from service. They might feel very comfortable in a chief's consultative committee handing
so
them
they
their
can worm their
information,
way
less
into
comfortable handing
different
it
communities,
to
gain their trust,
a board group that
and
may
arrest their
have
children.
a broad array of agencies within it. Now where's our information going? So we just have to be careful that we're getting permission before we share. Yeah. Am I right on that? I think does MFIPA govern over in
It would
terms of
on some elements of it, on some elements, and I think that's totally a fair point, is we do have to be sensitive when we embark on relationship building, that we're doing so in a transparent way, including on where we're taking our engagement information.
Right. Okay. Questions? No more questions? Okay. Comments? Vice Chair Brillinger.
Thank you, and thank you for all of the comments. Incredible work, and I don't want to be misunderstood to suggest we need a cookie cutter approach in any way. Quite the opposite. What I am interested in is ensuring that we have a framework that provides the right support at the right time in the way that is most beneficial to an individual community. I asked that the two reports be considered together because there's a lot of crossover in the special fund requests and the operations of particularly the CCCs.
Can we get a special fund request for the homeless?
We are, and I understand,
the
from
ones
a
who dying.
perspective, early days in kind of looking at that or re-looking at a framework. Certainly on the board side, as we undertake the strategic planning work, very much in the same place, and just wanting to make sure that those that activity proceeds in an aligned fashion. I believe Torontonians look to us as a group to engage with them, and that we need to build out frameworks that Torontonians understand, they can access, they don't get, is this service, is this board? Because from a Torontonian's perspective, it's about policing. So thank you for all of the work. I do have a motion, and it does relate to the evaluation and to the sustainability of activities funded through the special fund.
Sustainability.
I think everyone can see it on the board. I'm hoping this is consistent with the work that's already happening.
Right. Okay. Question of the mover?
I'm happy to second the motion.
Oh, okay. So, Town Deputy Mayor as a seconder. Those are your comments? Are there any other comments on either the item or the motion? Seeing none, that means it's a good motion.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, then we'll vote first on the motion, then we have
It
to
means
vote
there's no
separately
opposition
on item 5
in that
and
board.
item 14. So, first on Vice Chair Brillinger's motion, seconded by Deputy Mayor Morley, all in favor. Opposed, that is carried. And then on the,
What about the public's
on the
opposition?
item to approve the recommendations for item number 5,
Yes,
Vice Chair
that doesn't matter.
Brillinger, Member Kostakis is seconding. All in favor, opposed, that is carried. And then we'll deal with 14 at the same time. So that's item number 14, annual report 2024 activities and expenditures for the CCCs. Member Kostakis is moving, seconded by Vice Chair Brillinger. All in favor, opposed, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we will now go back to item number 6, and we have a deputation. This is, item number 6 is contract awards for vehicle towing and storage services. And Mr. Langenfeld, you are online again?
I am, yes.
Oh, we see your presentation right off the bat, so you can go ahead.
All right, good. Just a couple of quick points on this. In terms of the 4 organizations here, looking at the actual breakdown of the costs, the downtown rather naturally has all the various maximum allowed under the program, but it actually lays out the full amount. So, for example, $1,000 for a heavy truck, whereas for the other two, for Central and West, it breaks them out. So it's not actually clear if I'm driving a big rig downtown and I get towed, how much am I actually going to end up paying for downtown? I know it's going to be $1,000. But if I'm in the west or the east, am I paying $620 or $600, or what exactly is the amount? And then there's also simply the question of these contracts and the fact that they are only awarded, or that towing companies aren't permitted to bid on more than one contract, or at least aren't permitted to get an award on more than one contract. They can bid on all of them if they choose to, but they're only actually awarded one. And is that actually creating any benefit for us other than the fact that certain areas charge a lot more than others? Going back to that other slide here, where we have an extra $5 for storing a transport truck, and it's an extra $200 downtown if we're storing a transport truck. And granted, space is at a premium down there, but would we be better off if we didn't have that restriction, that they weren't allowed to actually succeed and win in 2 different regions or more? And that also plays out to, of course, we know there's a lot of issues in crime going on in the tow truck industry and overlapping, and we've had complaints about police officers in different agencies involved in shady dealings with the towing industry. And so I guess that's another question, is there any implication, or what's the...
Mr. Langenfeld, I'd ask you to stick to the details of the RFP as the item before us. There is another item later in the agenda.
I can talk about who is bidding on these if I want to, and I can certainly raise questions about the credibility of them. The fact that you don't want people asking questions, we understand that's why you got into politics, but that isn't the law, and that isn't freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and we're allowed to raise these issues. So
I'm simply pointing out, Mr. Langenfeld, that there is another item that has been added to the agenda at the end of today's proceedings where those concerns may be more properly placed. Right now, we're dealing with a procurement.
Well, you didn't bother to announce that, did you? And so
It's
maybe
been on
if
the
you did that,
agenda
rather than
since it was
spending
added at
10 minutes
9
going
a.m.
off and having a meeting on stuff, we'd be dealing with actual police business.
Yeah, they're
and
busy
dealing with
taking
the public
pictures
being involved in their
instead of
policing,
dealing with the
rather
public.
than what you seem to think it is, which is a private little club where you get input apparently from
Mr.
Duty
Langenfeld,
that tells you that there's an
I'm giving
intent
you
to
a
legislation.
running clock here. We have 2 items on the matter of towing. This one is a procurement item. The other one was added at 9 o'clock and posted immediately to the agenda, and you have the ability to speak to those
That
concerns
is at
then.
9 o'clock?
But I'll ask you to stick to the the item at hand, which is a procurement
Oh, my
item.
God.
And I'm
How are
gonna
you
be
supposed to
fairly
prepare
firm on
for
that. Thank
something
you.
added at 9 o'clock?
Do you think that who is bidding on
Jesus.
this isn't an issue of procurement? Is that your ruling, Chair?
That is my ruling, yes, that is
Oh.
correct, I have ruled.
So I want to make sure I understand this for the complaint. You're ruling that questions about who won a bid are not permitted in the question of approving a bid.
I'm going to remind you that I interrupted you when, as opposed to talking about the towing companies and the details of the RFP, you began to speak about the conduct of officers, and that is not before us at this moment. And I think if you review the tape, you'll find that. So I'm now going to remind you, you have
Maybe
10
it was
seconds
relevant.
left
Maybe you
in
cut
your
him
5
off.
minutes.
The police are just as ignorant in this board meeting as they are in person.
Thank you, and that is 5 minutes. Thank you.
And
Okay,
they
those are the deputations. Any
muted
questions of the deputants?
whatever
Seeing none.
importance
Are there
the
any
deputant
questions
had
to staff
to,
on the item?
you know, this is how they arrested
Oh, Councillor Chang,
the
go
last
ahead.
person last year, because they didn't
Thank you,
speak on the
Chair.
topic that they wanted.
I think our deputant brought this up, but
Authoritarianism
we
to
do
its
see a
finest.
huge range of rates between, especially this downtown towing versus the other areas, and I'm just wondering, is there consideration of just towing
handle the
to
littlest bit
outside
of
the
criticism.
downtown instead of storing something downtown, which obviously land is so expensive, and in the downtown core? Would it not save money to tow outside of downtown? It might cost more to do the tow because you're going further, but in the long term, if you're storing it, it might actually cost less.
So, a few things. Maybe I'll just comment on the procurement generally. So, number one, we do want to maintain good competitive conditions in the industry. So we have 4 zones for competitiveness, but also for practical
That's what they
reasons.
think democracy looks
Every
like.
provider is going to have the capacity needed to kind of tow for the entire city. And then on top of that, there's just the day-to-day practicalities of being in the city versus in the suburbs, and the volume that we're doing and the time that's going to end up being wasted, kind of going back and forth in distances and things like that. When the bidders, we did look at the rates, we did see a lot of variability, but the reality is 2 things. One, there's an act that is in place that does allow a certain amount of flexibility on the rates. The rates that have been provided are in compliance with the act, and each bidder is going to have their own strategic considerations.
You know,
on what
Mr.
they charge.
Langenfeld has been
They themselves are
speaking
looking
at
the
these
volume, the type of vehicle, how
meetings
far
for
the lot
years.
is, the cost
And
of
if he's
maintaining
having
that lot, all of
problems,
those types of
you're
things
going to
are
have
going to
problems. The
inform
public
the
is
pricing
not
that they
welcome
have
there.
ended up providing us. And so all we can do from a public procurement standpoint is evaluate, make sure that we put the right guardrails
Like I
in
said,
from a
dog and
procurement
pony show.
standpoint to get the best value, and that we're transparent, and that we're not seeing any exploitative sort
If they
of
were
practices,
transparent, they would
say,
have
in sort of
lines
this space.
to
And so
line
that's kind of
expenses
the
like
thing that
every
we
other
need to
business has.
some of the
Mr. Langenfeld is making a valid point
And
that
who
was
pays
muted
for these
by
costs?
him
Is
being
it
interrupted.
the person who's being towed,
Yes.
or is it the service?
not the service. So this is we are procuring on behalf, but effectively it's the person being towed that will bear this cost.
So people who are towed downtown could pay $1,000 for a heavy duty versus $90 if you're in the central area. Is that correct?
Yes, there's going to be variability on where you are non-compliant and getting towed.
Okay, and we're satisfied with this range.
Yes, and
Is
we've
that correct?
compared them to previous procurements and what the act actually allows, and this is within normative ranges.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Nobody's interrupting them.
Are there any other questions? I just have one myself, and it is with respect to the, in
No respect for the
contracting
deputants.
with multiple, companies. I'm wondering if the procurement is structured such that the proponents understand that we're gonna have performance metrics, and if they don't meet those performance metrics, then the other towers that we're under contract to would have first opportunity to bid to expand their zone.
Yes, we do have performance metrics, and we would go back out then, or, you know, and that
But they
could
won't
be one of the
answer Chris's
existing
questions.
vendors, but, everything from,
When you make your
don't have capacity
deputation,
to actually
they ask
do,
any questions. They don't answer
kinda
any
meet the
questions that you
demand.
have. They don't
you know,
care.
I do know the deputant raised
They weren't going
sort
to
of
answer
the idea of
Chris's
security
questions
checks and background
anyways.
checks. If for whatever reason you fail, a background check or any of your employees fail or they get in trouble with the law, you're automatically kind of kicked out. So there's
Yeah.
a number of measures that are put in place in the contract to make sure you're not only in good standing, but that you have the capacity up front to
Right.
actually meet kind of the demand we've projected.
Oh, okay, but you would go back out regardless if you needed to
You know,
suspend
everything
or terminate
wrong
a contract. There
with our
isn't a
police
right of
comes
first
down to this
refusal
board.
clause for the existing other contractors.
So when they don't
I
answer
will
questions,
double check about the first right of
they're giving
refusal, but
themselves
that's
a
typically
pass.
Okay.
They
All
give
right.
themselves a pass on everything. They
Is-
give
I think
themselves a
that's it for
pass
questions.
on
Are
beatings.
there
They give
any
them
comments on
pass
this
on
item?
misconduct.
Speakers, seeing none. Councillor Chang, we don't look up and ask you if you want to move an item on the agenda. Did you want to move this item? Seconded by Member Katsakis. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay.
Of course. There's never going to be anyone not voting against you. Anyone on that
Okay,
board
so
has to
we're on to item
agree.
number
They all have
7.
to act in unison.
I held the whole series
Just
of
like the police.
variance
They have
reports.
each other's back.
It's just on 7.1
They're looking out for
that
each
I
other.
had questions.
They're not
Are
looking
there
out for you,
questions
Chris.
on 7.1
They're not looking out for
by
me.
other
They're
members?
not looking out for any of these deputants. They're not looking out for the city.
right.
They're looking out for their budget,
Sorry, I
their
forgot.
officers.
It's to the
and their
whole series of
politician
item
buddies.
number 7. Okay. Okay, so we'll take the deputation first. Sorry, members. There's also a written one.
Look how many
I'm gonna
few
call
deputations
Mr.
there are.
Taub up, but
This
there's
is an
also
entire day,
written
and there's
deputation in your agenda.
maybe a half
Mr.
hour
Taub,
of
you want to
deputations.
speak on number 7?
They spend more time on their lunch than they do listening to deputations.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
Before my time starts, I just want to thank you, Chair Carolyn,
Oh
Chief
my
Deputy, for their
gosh,
statements that opened
Zionist.
up today's meeting. I know that the community, all communities, really appreciate it, bring it to light, and take it forward. Thank
This
you.
guy's disgusting. He's going to call
Chair Carroll, Chief
us,
Deputy,
he's
Deputy
going to
Chiefs
call
Johnson and
protesters
Co.,
terrorists.
members of the board, let me first start by wishing those who celebrate a Chag Sameach.
This is the
and an early happy
weaponization
Easter.
of the police
My name
force.
is Matthew Tobe.
So let this guy
I'm
speak.
a proud Torontonian, a husband and a father, and frankly, someone who never imagined I'd be here again and again, having to plead for the safety and dignity of Jews in the city. I
I'm
came here
black.
not because I want to, not because
I've been
it's my
dealing with
cause,
this since I was
because I wanna
5
see
years
things
old in the
through
city.
the lens of a people that are being
Nobody
racially,
knows this guy's
ethnically, and
Jewish.
religiously
Everyone knows
targeted.
I'm black.
I believe deeply in public safety and in the value of a strong, well-supported police force. I'm not here to promote less funding. I'm here to ask the question that every taxpayer should be asking. What exactly are we funding? Because I've reviewed the budget variance report, and the $20.1 million spent on what are described as unplanned protests doesn't pass the test.
Yeah, it does if they're watching
These
the
protests are not
Palestinians.
unplanned. They're organized, they're advertised, they're marketed on social media,
Digital
complete
surveillance.
with posters and themes. So let's stop calling them spontaneous. They're only unplanned in the legal sense, and yet they're escorted week after week by Toronto police at extraordinary cost to the taxpayer. I have deep respect for the police, the chief, and for all of command.
This man
I know that
wants us,
anti-Semitism may
the
not be
police,
the
to
one of
end the
Toronto's top
protests
10
and arrest the
safety concerns.
protesters.
When viewed through a broad lens,
There are
of the city,
Israel protests
of
too.
Toronto's Jewish community, nearly 200,000 people. This
Yesterday,
matters
someone was
These
finally
protests
arrested
don't take over our streets.
for attacking
They destroy the moral
the
fabric
March
of the city.
21st
I've seen signs
protest
that compare Zionists to Nazis,
at
dressed in camouflage and keffiyeh
see?
and Hamas headbands, playing the audio of official Hamas spokespeople. I've seen
Lies.
Jewish children harassed, store windows targeted, and
Lies.
flags desecrated. And all this happens while the
I'm going to
police
show you a
escort.
video
Meanwhile, the Jewish community,
how
every
the
time we
Jewish
organize an
community
event,
treats
a
the
peaceful,
Palestinians
family-oriented,
after this.
permitted event. Just a week ago, a movie screening We have to require paid service, uniformed officers, paid duty, barriers, and surveillance at our cost, which we're also paying for these protests. Why? To protect us from the very people being escorted around the city at a cost of $20 million.
What?
The normalization of this hate,
It's
only
to protect
growing.
the Jewish community.
Just this past weekend during the so-called Night of Rage,
This man is sick
we
in his
watched as
head.
protesters, many of them from outside the city, march down Yonge Street chanting, "Kick the Zios out, out, out." Zios, as we know, is the word they use in place of Jews.
No.
You know it,
Zionism
I know it, and they sure
is
as hell know it. And the crowd chanted it too.
the removal
One
of
the speakers at the
Palestinians.
rally, Ahmad
But you're
Hajaman,
calling
a resident of Mississauga,
this man should be arrested.
declared, and I
If he was
quote,
saying the same thing against Jewish
"We
people,
stand directly to the call, directly
cops
from
would
the
be at his
resistance
door.
in Gaza. They have called us to
Someone
actually
needs to call
stand
this
up
out.
and speak
This
up
is
and have a
garbage.
night of rage." He added, "This power and oppression, the 1% that is controlling this world, controls the system we are under today." That 1%, he's referring to Jews, another modern blood libel, thrown out to inflame a crowd.
Oh,
And
God.
this wasn't a cry for justice.
Is there any facts
It was
here,
a call to
or is this how
glorify
you feel?
Hamas. It was incitement. But of course, according to one of our officers, equating these protests with Hamas, well, that's Islamophobic. I've asked that anti-Semitism
is.
in the police force be added to the agenda. I don't expect it
this
to
guy
ever
has
happen.
nothing to say about Nazis,
Calling it
KKK.
anti-Semitism
These have
is
nothing
probably
running
considered
around.
Islamophobic. And so I asked this board, is that what our $20.1 million is paying
Anti-Semitism
for?
is based in
Police
white
escorts
supremacy.
for Jew haters? The last time that
You
happened
are
was
killing
1938,
100
and we know where that
children
led to.
a day. What's
Why is
that?
Toronto expected to absorb the cost of destruction brought by people outside the city who don't even respect our laws? Meanwhile, we're told to stay calm.
This
We're
guy
told not
doesn't
to criticize.
respect
And
other
why?
people's rights to protest.
Let me be crystal clear.
Freedom of speech.
It's not Islamophobic to criticize those who
It is a
glorify
lot,
Hamas.
but it's
not Islamophobic
It's
to call out
anti-Semitic
people
to
playing
say
terrorist
Zionists.
propaganda in public. And it's not Islamophobic to
Right.
demand protection from hate for all of us. Let's stop pretending this isn't about religion.
They're gonna let
because it
this
is.
man
When Jews are singled out,
weaponize
when Jewish identity is
his
vilified,
fucking speech, but they're gonna
when Jews
cut off somebody
have
criticizing
to do a
the
head chant
budget.
of target Zios, a slur that it's for Jews. That's about religion. It's also about public safety. It's about equal application of the law, and it's about basic accountability. Your officers deserve clarity in what they're doing. And the
Equal
Jewish
application of the
community
law.
deserves
I've
more
been
than a
waiting for
bill
justice
for
my
our own
entire
protection,
life.
while hate parades are given
Hate
street
parades?
access, police escorts, and political cover. I want to end on this. I'm not asking for equal treatment.
This man's statement is a hate
I'm
parade.
asking that these hate parades that glorify terrorism are shut down. I'm asking for policy, clear, enforced policy that puts an end to the cycle of intimidation. I'm asking the chief to use the laws that already exist, laws against incitement, hate speech, and criminal harassment, and start making arrests on the spot. I'm asking that police stand in harm's way. I don't want anybody being harmed,
He wants police
but
to
that's part of protecting the
weaponize
city.
anti-Semitic
If it
laws
requires more
against
protection-
normal protesters.
If it requires more protection, let's bring
See
it
what
in.
he's asking.
OPP, RCMP, tactical.
RCMP,
That $20.1
tactical.
million can
What
be
about our
spent
missing
to
women?
Stop this
What about
instead of helping it.
what about the
Money is what
racism in
happens.
the
It
Toronto
When
police?
Jews are killed in the city,
About a minute over. Yeah.
I will make
He
sure
don't
it's
care
known.
about that.
We asked you to stop these hate parades.
He don't care
We
about
beg you
that.
to protect us from this hate.
He don't care
We come
about the
here again and
hate
again.
against
We
the
just
Palestinians
want it to stop.
from his own community
Thank you.
because he is that hate.
Are there any questions for the deputy?
No,
Seeing
you don't.
none. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
You didn't thank. the
Are
people.
there any questions? I think we'll go through them section by section. 7.1 is.
This is the most disgusting
Are there any questions
board
on 7.1? I have
conceived.
some myself, but Councillor Chang, did you want to go first? Member Chang?
I can't
Go ahead.
believe they
Sure.
let that.
I think this is a regular topic
Unfiltered
that comes,
friggin'
which
hate
is about
speech.
premium pay.
Go
And
unchallenged.
it looks
But
here
they
we
challenged
spent
the
103
financial-
million.
Oh,
And I'm just wondering, how many officers could we hire at that amount of money if we were to, I guess, regularize
spend more money?
this type of the work that is being done?
So I think what's difficult. So there's a predictable amount of work, and then there's the unpredictable. And so I don't think there's ever really a scenario where premium pay goes away. But yes, as we work towards achieving our multi-year hiring plan, the goal is to shift more and more onto regular duty, let's say, because it's predictable work that we can respond to and address, and save premium pay for just the unplanned, for, you know, really kind of necessary callbacks for things that you can't always anticipate. And so we are trying to calibrate. We did strike up a working group with the staff supers to take a hard look at premium pay. And what I'm encouraged to see is now that we're 4 months in to 2025, we are seeing that even with increased hiring, we are seeing premium pay curbing downwards to try and manage this a bit better.
So at
Premium
103
pay.
million, what percentage of that would be for things that we just can't avoid? Like, for example, court duty.
Oh,
From
where courts,
last
where
time I looked
police
at it,
stay at court
it is a
all
mix
day
of
and
court,
make 2-3 times their wages.
kind of callbacks and overtime, and it's roughly
And
like a
do
third,
nothing?
a third. It does sway. Court time did
That's
go up.
police work?
It did start to look like that was about 40% of our premium pay, but that is actually the one area where certainly we have put a lot of controls and change in practices. I mean, we were in the news for the change in practice we were trying to do with the crowns, and so we are seeing a meaningful reduction there. The other thing we did was look at our special events approach and look at, do we try and address the city's special events
Man.
more through on duty now that we have more resources this year? And
Black
so
children
see-
have been
we'll
missing, I
start to
think
see
100 or
changes
something.
in that composition this year.
And the police fail to
And
respond.
in the report, it also notes that there were
When
31
Indigenous people
more
call
separations
for
than
missing
anticipated.
and black call
How
about
does
their
that
missing children,
impact
they never
the
get a
number of
response.
officers that we're able to onboard this year? Are we maxed with the hiring plan, or is there room to
And this is where they
compensate
want to spend their
for
money.
the extra separations?
So so there's about a 12 to 18 month lag to kind of catch up in a way on separations because our classes are set. However, what we don't budget for, because it is our plan B, is experienced hires. So we have
So they can spend
3
more
classes
money
of 90, four
on
four
experienced
classes of
hires.
90 that are set.
They don't
They're
plan for
budgeted.
that.
But what's not budgeted is actually 2 classes of experienced hires, so one in May and
So you
one
can
in
get dinged
November.
with another bill.
And the province is considering a 5th intake, so we actually have this year 3 unplanned opportunities that where we can reasonably catch up. And what I also just want to highlight is the number of separations that did happen actually are quite normative. They're not out of the ordinary. If you look at where we're at in our complement, we're within less than 1% of our budgeted complement. That's actually unheard of.
Who would want to give up
Most vacancy
over
rates are between 2
100K
to
a year?
5%. So we are very tightly managing the ins and outs of our workforce to also not blow our salary budget. So I do think we're able to achieve our hiring plan for this year.
Have the biggest budget in
It's
the
great
province.
to hear. And my last question is just about
You're talking about blowing it.
the impact of separations on supervisory roles, because I'm assuming there's a lot of retirements in this mix. And so is that where your classes of hiring experienced officers would make up and perhaps give us opportunity to strengthen our supervisory capacity?
So yeah, I mean, our experienced hires will certainly offer a level of kind of experience on the road that you won't necessarily see from a cadet, but that's also where our promotional processes fit in. So we intentionally promote and create a bit of a list to try and forecast upcoming separations so that you're gradually whittling down a list. And so the next promotional process, there's one in the fall for sergeants, and then one following that will be for staff sergeants. And those lists are intended to be kind of big enough that you're gradually deploying over the course of 6, 9, 12 months. So we're trying to address gaps. That's also where acting will come into play, acting staff sergeants, acting inspectors, to try and address and make sure you have adequate supervision, especially on the front line.
Great, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Just have some myself, but I want to clarify the first one, which is the premium pay. we do have some recoveries for that. So in actual fact, what's going to appear in the budget documents is premium pay still over budget, but 89.6. I think it's important to note that because people love to speak in gross terms, and the next thing you know, we think that's the number. But in fact, I think we have a pretty good track record on the recoveries. Am I right about that, or are there receivables that we don't
we're
know
very
about?
good at planning the money coming in.
Good.
And so the big number is 100, but it is offset by revenue. That would be in the revenue line.
Okay. And then if I go back to the beginning of this report, we're going to have this problem. It actually both years will come. People are going to see a whopping adjustment.
Hello? All right. Sorry, just had to change my mic.
For year end that
Yes.
we're seeing here, this budget has already been restated for the 2024 settlement.
That's what I was getting
So
at.
that's
so when
already in.
people see a column which is the adjusted budget total for 24, so we'll say your budget in 24 was whatever plus 61
Yes.
million. That will be combined in a number so that they see a number for 24, then they will see the 25 adjustment in the 25 column.
Yes.
So it's not all
It's
banged
not
together in
all
one.
happening in
Good,
one year. It
good.
actually improves your comparison because
Yes.
it's then going to be apples to apples.
Exactly. I just wanted to make sure that you're working that out in terms of city's financial planning, because I think it'll be important for us to be able to explain to the public the trend they see. And then the other item in number one is the budget increase for FIPA. I was looking for it in the report, and I'm not quite clear that we're pulling forward 2 million here, zero net, because
Got
it's
money
coming
for
from the
FIFA.
FIFA budget. But is that increasing
City's got money
what
for
the
FIFA, but don't
Secretariat
got money
has
for
on the books
homelessness.
for the police expenditures, or that we're just pulling forward 2 million of the budget
Yes.
they have?
Never mind an
so
opioid
the
crisis.
overall
that,
police estimate for FIFA remains
They've just
unchanged.
closed down all the
Okay.
What does happen
OPSs,
as part of the project is we may pull
and
we
now
pull
the
forward
police
to
are
buy some
handling
equipment ahead
the
of
drug
time,
policy
but
and
it all
saving
still is
lives, I
within
guess,
the same
in
envelope, and it was planned money,
Right.
in the
planned
city.
expenditure. We just pulled it
We're going to see
forward
how that
for
looks.
operational training purposes.
It's probably
and
not
to
gonna
make
be
sure we
pretty.
have it so when we train our new POU members.
Okay. Oh, and I made one other note on premium pay, which is we had a look at this. This is the 2024 numbers, and we went over, and we typically do. We typically says we underfund premium pay. We kind of under budget premium pay, but the pressure was on us from the city to reduce the budget assumption there. So it's not always us trying to underestimate. We're sometimes pressured to use that as a balancing
That is
strategy.
the balancing. That's always the balancing
Yeah.
strategy. We always start the year with anywhere between $20 to $30 million of pressure. Last year we did not budget for any resolute. We did not budget for that again. So there's
Right.
always a certain amount of pressure on that premium pay number that we are trying to manage.
Right. And to be fair to 2024, at that point, that estimate really started the year without any of the new officers that the last 2 years have seen. So
Yeah.
it would have been very hard to achieve it in
Yes.
24, or even close to it. Okay, those are my
More
questions
officers,
then.
more money.
Okay.
I don't know why we needed more
I wonder if
officers.
we want to just check for questions on the other sections and then vote on all the sevens at once. Deputy Mayor Morley, you had questions?
I know, Madam Chair, I have a motion, I believe on 7.1 specifically, so I can hold if you'd like to go run through questions to complete, and then
Let's get all the questions, if there are any, and then we can go back to motions and comments. So we have 7.2, which is
Motions and
the
comments.
capital variance report, and then 2024 operating variance report for the parking enforcement unit is 7.3, and then Toronto Police Service Board. So I think though, because those ones are a little more straightforward, questions in any of those areas? Councillor Chang? Member Chang?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at page 13 of the capital variance with regard to paper notes and the new records management system. And I see that the contract was approved, and I just wonder if we could just get an update on this item. It looks like everything's moving forward.
It relates to the niche project, and I think e-notes. I'm just going to turn it over to the CTO.
So,
The new records management
Yes, the niche
system.
system.
Yeah.
We keep coming back to this.
and hopefully we'll keep coming back with increasing frequency until we get the thing across the finish line
Yeah.
live. The e-notes is progressing well. We have had new functionality added to the system for Toronto specifically to make sure that we can encompass the entirety of the e-notes. I would break it down into two elements. One, things that were purely done on officers' paper notebooks.
This is the TPS
that are going to be moved on to the electronic
technology
solution.
specialist.
And the second
IT guy.
is as the initiation of reports, so those can be done from the scene and bypassing any duplication of data entry, as well as accelerating investigative processes by getting data from the scene immediately.
You know, the
to
city's
investigators
discussing
being
using
visual.
AI.
So green
Image
means
capture.
that everything is according to schedule, and so is there a projected launch date when
And all this budget money is
the
going to
paper notebooks are
the
phased
development
out?
of that, millions of dollars.
We are proposing to go in the fall of 26 at this point. And that would be, the rollout pathway has not been set yet, so exactly how we're going to move through the organization in the rollout has not been defined, but that is the start of rollout. And we are on track and we're on budget.
Great, thank you. And my next question is on page 8, long-term facility plan. We know a lot of our stations are aging, and good to see that this analysis is happening. And I'm wondering but also noting that it is red, and I guess there is a consultant coming online. But I just wonder, are podium stations included in the scope of analysis of, figuring out how we fund the necessary renovations or perhaps even rebuilds of existing aging infrastructure?
Sorry, can you clarify what's a podium station?
Oh, so it's when a station is built into a high rise. So the land where the station is maybe valuable. I know in my Ward 32 division sits on.
Oh, you mean
land.
podium? You mean police divisions? You mean podium divisions?
Yes.
We don't use the S word anymore.
Oh, okay.
Subdivision.
So
Yes.
I think the idea of sort of substations and creativity around how we do facilities is in the mix generally as we think about how we're trying to accommodate for growth, or even if we look at we set up community hubs at like Cadillac Fairview and things like that. What this study is specifically looking at though is our actual big standalone divisions. 13 division 54 55 dog services and things like that. So it is not the idea of getting creative and having stations within other buildings, that's always something we're considering. What this is looking at is what is the order in which we need to start renovating the existing big footprints that we already have. So that's what this is focused on.
Just to clarify, so an example would be, 32 Division is, I hear, and I've seen it's quite an old building and perhaps not optimal for the service that works there. And so one potential idea would be, and I think this happens in New York City, where they actually work with a developer. The developer says, okay, I will build a new station and I will build housing on top of it. So that
Yes.
leverages the land for an opportunity to then have resources towards building a brand new station, whereas we might not have it in our capital plan or budget in the next 10 years.
Yes, so all of those options are looked at when it's time to consider that division. So right now, we are solving for 54-55 and looking at creative ways to do that. The next one's going to be 13, and the challenge with 13 is there's actually no land available nearby. So some of the options you're thinking about are absolutely on the table. We work with Create TO, CREM on what are different options to move our people while we either renovate or raise to the ground or something to address it. So those are just the ones that are upcoming. I know 22 is not too far. So what we do know is the order in which we need to start thinking of
That's
them.
great. Well, the
And
police
then
are
when
building
it's
up.
time
The
to do
city's
that
falling
thinking,
apart.
these options start to come onto the table.
Great, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay. Are there any, taking questions on all three of
Homelessness is
those
increasing.
outstanding ones. Are there any other questions on the,
The
on
tariffs,
the remaining
tariffs
variance
are going to
reports?
prevent
Seeing none,
building
I'll take
of,
it back up to comments
low-income
and
housing.
motions. Councillor Chang, you had a motion?
people are going to lose jobs, but
Who
we're
is-
going to
who
have
was it?
lots
Had-
of police.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor
Mayor
Morley.
Morley.
Couldn't remember who. Go
That's
ahead.
okay, Madam Chair, thank you. If staff could display the motion, I think you have it. We've been talking a lot, and we heard from our deputy today about the challenges faced by the service in the last year with unplanned and unexpected response, as is our legislative responsibility to ensure all Torontonians are safe, even when the motivation for the demonstrations are international conflicts that are impacting us in ways we couldn't think about. So this motion is really just looking at us requesting that the Government of Canada provide 19.5 million in funding to the service to offset the costs of Project Resolute up to December 31st, 24, and in recognition of Toronto's unique policing needs as a diverse global city with obligations to protect a broad range of public, community, and diplomatic infrastructure. I think this really goes hand in hand with the conversation we've been having over the last couple of years here. We know as a city, our ability to pay is limited. We have a structural deficit, and it's really important that our partners and our other orders of government, especially those, with bigger banks than us, and certainly with some more purview, are able to join us at the table and partner with us on the important work that we do and make sure that we can afford to do it. So that's the motion. I hope my colleagues will be supportive. I'm happy to answer any questions.
More money. I think every motion is more money.
Member Kostakis is gonna second it. Are there any questions of the mover? I have a question on the motion. So it's interesting because you're asking for a sum to mirror what we have spent on Project Resolute in 2024. But so is the intent of the motion that
Doesn't
we're
help
looking
you
for a
watching
one-time
this, you don't know
sum
what Project
simply
Resolute
to
is.
recover the cost from the previous year?
That is the intent of this particular motion. And I think there's other discussions around intergovernmental support and as it relates to our unique costs of policing.
Yeah.
But I think this is just underscoring those important broader conversations and hopefully allowing us to be made whole in some regards for
I think
the
that's
costs
the only way it
from
hasn't
last
been
year.
asked for yet, which is interesting.
This can get our foot in the door.
Okay. Under the heading of let's
Straight
give it a
from the
try.
horse's mouth.
Are there any other questions to the mover or any comments on the motion or on the items? Okay, seeing none, then we can vote on Member Morley's motion, and then you need a separate for each of the variance reports? Or we could vote on them as a package as item number 7. Excellent. Okay. So the motion pertaining to 7.1, moved by Deputy Mayor Morley, seconded by Member Kostakis. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And then on item number 7 as a package, the variance reports, Vice Chair Brillinger and I'll second. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Of course.
Thank you, members. Okay.
When a member opposes another member in this board meeting, I'm going to make a big video about it.
Thank
and
you. I hope people have
I don't know.
reviewed Mr. Sewell's written deputation. Yes. Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know.
So we are down to item number 10, which is the annual report rewrite-off of uncollectible accounts receivable balances from Jan 1, 2024 to December 31st. Mr. Moran, we have you down.
Finally, another deputation.
Afternoon.
Again, my mom called me Derek. But
That's why I called you Mr. Moran today.
no, but as I told Andy Pringle, Mr. is a term of Admiralty maritime jurisdiction that refers to a subordinate inferior. In fact, Chris Langenfeld asked me to specifically stop calling him when we talk on the phone in jest, Mr. Langenfeld, because I guess. But yeah, I'm not the inferior subordinate here.
Okay, go
by
ahead.
me speaking at this meeting, this shall not be deemed to be in any way my consent expressed or implied. In doing so is fraud. God bless
This
His
was
Majesty King,
the
long live His Majesty
deputant
King.
that they
And if
previously
Daniel
arrested
Tate has
at a
ever
board
led the
meeting.
Toronto Police to believe in any way that he is surety for the matter involving Sir John A. Macdonald's plywood
well known to
box, then that would be a mistake, and that I ask the Toronto Police to please forgive Daniel Tate. So, like you said about the budget subcommittee, Councillor Carroll, we go way back. And
See, I told you.
I can't tell you how disappointed I am that you blatantly violated Chris Langenfeld's freedom of expression.
Thank you.
And I know this happened like 8 years ago. So I'm going to respectfully just refresh your memory at a Public Works and the old Public Works and Infrastructure Committee meeting. You were sitting on the other side of the table, ironically, and you witnessed Giorgio Mammoliti, who works in mysterious ways, get into it with this lawyer here. He used to wear I haven't seen him in a while. He used to wear the lavender dress shirts. And Giorgio asked for a legal opinion on people not sticking to the topic. So hopefully I just have to say this once so this doesn't keep coming up again. What this legal opinion the lawyer told Giorgio Mammoliti said was, well, it's entirely appropriate for any deputant to say whatever they basically want to say. And if they want to pitch a product, even though that's not what's happening, they're allowed to do that as well. And in fact, a deputant can speak to anything related to the report and related to the subject matter of the report. It doesn't have to relate directly to the recommendations in the report. It's entirely appropriate to have this deputant speak as on whatever she wishes to speak to in relation.
Thank you
That
so
might
much.
jog your memory because if you watch the video, you're sitting on the other side of the table. So, like,
Somebody has to police the police.
this is why, with the exception of that one meeting, this is why Ann Morgan was such
Good
a
job.
great chair, because we didn't have to deal with this stuff other than that one meeting. And just tune people out, you know what I mean? Because I know myself, like Chris Langenfeld can be a tad painful every once in a while, but just like tune him out, check your email, scroll through like Councillor Perks does throughout the whole time. You're just sitting there scrolling through his phone, not paying attention. So in this report, it says accounting also ensures that accurate and complete invoices are sent to the proper location on a timely basis. A receivable write-off is considered under the following circumstances. The collection agency has exhausted all collection efforts. It is uneconomical to pursue further collection efforts. A write-off adjustment removes the receivable from the financial record, but the collection agency maintains the account in collection in an effort to collect the amount in the future. The account was sent to a third-party collection agency March 5th, 2021, and they have also been unsuccessful to date. When payments remain outstanding and payment arrangements are not successful, the customer or member is placed on something called the Dunning notice cycle, a communication process of reminders up to a 90-day notice period in an attempt to collect the funds. Should the account remain delinquent, the next step is referring the account to third-party collections. The collections agency is specialized in collecting activities on delinquent accounts. In the instances recommended for write-off above, the collection agency has not been able to locate the former members, and therefore the amount is being written off as uncollectible. So, I got something in the mail recently that deals with this. This came to mind recently. The City of Toronto says that one of the serious legal consequences if you do not pay a fine on time is formal collection proceedings via private collection agency. Although I could have swore back in November at the courthouse at Shepherd and Markham Road that your city prosecutor, Manilova Tang, determined that I was not the person charged and that the person charged was not present in the courtroom. A fortiori, by even greater force of logic, she determined that I was not the person, even though I was standing there talking to the Justice of Peace for 2 minutes. If any of you watched the recording, you'd say, yeah, I know who that is. That's Derek. So, I don't know, is this an extortion attempt now to get $70 out of me? And I just want to point out that at the time, a year ago, Officer Andrew Olechna gave me a caution. And in the legal definition of caution is security given on oath, such as a bond, security given to ensure performance of some obligation. So if you want that $70, hit Officer Andrew Olechna up. Indirectly offered to act as surety for me.
Very good to know. Okay, are there any questions on item number 10 or comments? Seeing none, looking for a motion to adopt. Member Kasaga, seconded by Member Morgan. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried then on item number 10. Sorry, was that? Oh no, Mr. Moran's coming back. We're going straight to item number 11. Don't get comfortable. So item number 11 is on the annual report 2024 Toronto Police Service consulting expenditures. There's also, while you're getting seated, there's also a written submission at the bottom of the agenda for Ms. Corrado. Go ahead.
You know, when Chin Lee was filling in for Andy Pringle once, he called me Mr. Moran. And there's video of, so like, Mr. Moran is the person I have that the Crown is the surety for, and the camera angle was from that camera. And when I was saying that the Crown is the surety for the person, you can see then Chief Mark Saunders sitting there. Remember how he used to sit there like he was like always praying, always listening very attentive? He starts nodding his head, and he makes this motion towards me like, yeah, you're right. Crown is the surety for the person you have. I have to make sure I get in. I just wanted to acknowledge my new favorite Toronto police officer. No, not you, Superintendent Moyer. It's Superintendent Frank Beretta for going to for going to City Council recently and schooling you all about. See, you remember. And it's too bad she's not in the room.
Very complimentary feedback from some of my colleagues.
It's too bad she's not in the room, but Councillor Cheng is a big fan of my meme-making abilities. And I just wanted to say that I dedicated a meme to Superintendent Barreto, that bylaws do not supersede freedom of expression. So, thank you, Superintendent Barreto.
Thank you.
And also, I want to quickly get in. I want to thank Member Ann Morgan for agreeing with me at the meeting last month that the new Police Services Act still provides an opportunity for Councillor Burnside to have remained on the board. So in this report it says, consulting costs are defined as a type of service by a firm or individual providing advice to the service. The 2024 actual consulting expenditures totaled, $610,000. Legal services in 2023, $222,000, not bad. 2024, $311,000, that's almost a 50% increase. It mentions that Learners LLP got $37,000 to provide consultation and legal advice regarding prosecution services. And this is also something I once brought up to the former Crown prosecutor with Member Ann Morgan, but I didn't have the actual information with me at the time. This is from, so you get to hear this from me for free. I'm not charging you $38,000 for this. This is from the actual bylaws of the Law Society of Upper Canada, of Ontario now, Chapter 5-1-.1-3. The public interest in the proper administration of justice should not be sacrificed in the interest of expediency. A duty as a prosecutor. When acting as a prosecutor, a lawyer shall act for the public in the administration of justice resolutely and honorably within the limits of the law while treating the tribunal with candor, fairness, courtesy, and respect. When engaged as a prosecutor, the lawyer's prime duty is not to seek to convict, but to see that justice is done through a fair trial on the merits. The prosecutor exercises a public function involving much discretion and power and must act fairly and dispassionately. The prosecutor should not do anything that might prevent the accused from being represented by counsel or communicating with counsel, and to the extent required by law and accepted practice, should make a timely disclosure to defense counsel or directly to an unrepresented accused of all relevant and known facts and witnesses, whether tending to show guilt or innocence. Also, it mentions that Learners LLP to provide legal services in relation to a Charter of Rights application. That was only $992. So yeah, you get to hear this for free. Section 28 of the Constitution Act, 1982, better known as Schedule B of the UK-Canada Act 1982. Rights guaranteed equally to both sexes. I thought there was 32 genders, but apparently there's only 2 sexes. Notwithstanding anything in this charter, the rights and freedoms referred to it are guaranteed equally to male and female persons. The problem with that is members of the public will never think of actually looking up what the legal definition for person is being used here. Also, Toronto Police Services Board Legal, Hicks, Morley, Hamilton, Stewart provided expert advice, legal opinion on general employment and labor relations issues for $38,971. Now, something that a lot of you probably don't know is that the Toronto Public Library Board spent $1.3 million trying to find out who is counseling staff there to keep asking the management who is surety for the mandatory COVID shot requirements that had to be taken. Because you might all recall that Tracy Cook out of the blue said, hey, the science doesn't require you guys taking these shots anymore. And in the future, you might want to ask Hicks, Morley, Hamilton, Stewart to show you where the science was to begin with that you ever had to take these shots, and where the science was.
That was my issue with
that you didn't have to take them anymore because it was never provided. And as Scott Duncan says, Dr. DeVille said all of her decisions, recommendations were based on science, and she didn't provide it, and she was committing a breach of trust.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that is deputation. So
Wow,
on
they sound enthusiastic to hear
service consultants expenditures, are there any other
the voice
questions?
of the public.
Any comments? Okay, seeing none, Deputy Mayor Morley, would you like to move the recommendations? Seconded by Member Kostakis. All in favor, opposed, that is carried. We adopted 11.2 earlier, so we are up to, we are at item number 15, and we have a virtual deputation. There's an annual report, suspended police officers, Jan 1, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. And we have a virtual deputation. Is Mr. Tate online?
Hi, can you hear me?
There we go. Yes, we can see you now. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. First, I just want to say thanks to Derek, the previous deputant, for standing up for my honor. Hopefully, I can be released from the shackles of justice very soon, and we should absolutely free John from the box. Talking about police suspensions and code of conduct, I'm not going to get too deep into the story because everybody knows it, but I can tell you that it wasn't just the Jewish community that was mortified about that podcast that was released several weeks ago, but the whole city was mortified by it. I've personally spoken to people from across the spectrum, whether it's the political spectrum, religious spectrum, class spectrum, it doesn't matter. Everybody was absolutely mortified by what was said, the content that was said by those officers in that podcast. And since we're on the topic of suspensions, the point I want to make is I truly hope that the powers that be within the Toronto Police Service are levying the appropriate punitive measures to the people, not just the people in the podcast, but anybody else who facilitated that, so that it never happens again. You know, we all police officers and people who work in the police services abide by the Ontario Code of Conduct for Police Officers, 407-23, and it's very specific that our Toronto police have to operate with
And
honor
we're talking about
and integrity
equality.
because trust is the most important
I
foundational
don't think there's
part
equality.
of a successful police service.
There's equity,
And when police
injustice
officers do things
from
and say repugnant things that erode that trust, that hurts the entire service. So what I'm trying to say here is that this can't just be swept under the rug or reviewing procedures and everyone's going to forget about it
Something's
because
gonna happen
nobody's
now.
going to forget
Wow.
about it. What we saw several weeks ago is now burned in everybody's long-term memory, and it was a huge blight on the fine reputation of the
Fine.
Toronto Police Services. And I don't know, just as an aside, my thought is maybe Toronto Police should get out of the business of anything pertaining to like politics, religion, identity. Just get into law enforcement, like just the
Oh,
basics.
if you
Back to
talk about
basics.
racial
Law enforcement,
profiling,
criminal
talk about
investigation,
carding,
like the core things that taxpayers expect from our
talk
police
about
services.
painting Black and
Because
Indigenous
we cannot
communities
afford
as
to have another blemish
criminals.
like that because
Get
again,
out of
it's harmful
politics.
to everybody.
They are
It's
the
harmful
politics.
to the TPS. It puts the Toronto Police.
Didn't you see the Zionists come in there
the
before?
TPA, the Police
Man.
Association, in a very tough predicament because on the one hand they have to go to bat for all their police
police
officers,
are going to be
but when certain police
the
officers
walking
are saying
line
things
between
that are
politics
again completely
and
incompatible with
streets in the next
normal
couple years.
decency, which is what was said, and I'm not going to reiterate it. It was so repugnant. It's a negative situation for everybody, and we all want the police services to succeed. So my main point here is
Not all of us
not
want
only do we need a review of procedures
And some
and
of us want
policies
them
to
abolished.
understand how that happened,
So
and to make
people
sure
like
it doesn't
you can
happen
stop
again.
weaponizing
But there
them.
also needs to be a stronger vetting of the worldviews of new recruits
Oh my goodness.
and the worldviews of
Like
people,
maybe
of
not
police
having
officers
racist
who are
cops.
already in there, the rank and file. Because if they're harboring views that are incompatible with Canadian values, those people need a severe talking to. Really, HR
And them being
involved,
racist
whoever else
against
needs
Black
to get involved, because
and
we
Indigenous
need to trust
people
our
was
police
fine.
officers. I call them Toronto's finest, and when things like that happen, it erodes trust at every level. So
Toronto's
that's the point I
smarmiest.
just wanted to make. I really
Toronto's
hope the chief and
grimiest.
everybody else there at 40 College understands the severity of this situation and is taking the appropriate matters, whether that's suspensions with or without pay or other punitive measures or preventative measures, etc. I just truly hope that
Like this
everybody in that
podcast was the
room
first
understands the gravity of
racist
the
thing the
situation
police have done.
and is going to make sure it never happens again. Thank you.
You want to send the
Thank you,
police
Mr. Tate.
after brown people.
Are there any questions
Oh
for
my
the
God.
deputant?
You see where
Seeing none, we thank you. Are there any
I'm gonna bring up
questions on the item?
the last
Seeing none and no
Zionist,
comments. Then I'll take a
what
motion
he had
to
to
receive
say
the report. Member
about
Migliori, seconded by
brown
Vice
people
Chair
protesting.
Bellinger. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay.
liken them to
And that brings
terrorists,
us
Hamas.
to, in the investigative reports,
Some people have
we
been going to these
adopted most of
to the
items
Jewish
under
rallies
16,
saying beep beep,
except for we held
referencing the
16.3,
pagers from the
which is
Lebanese
2024-4
Lebanon
custody injury.
assassination
And I'm
attempts
just checking to see
by
if that
Israel through
was-
using pagers.
That may have been.
Disgusting.
Oh, it was
That's
you. I was
happening
looking to
in the
see if it
city.
was me because I had a memory. But Vice Chair Bellinger, go ahead. Your question.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to confirm, because this one's a bit complicated with a whole bunch of moving parts. Just wanted to confirm that at the appropriate time, the complainant will be advised of the internal professional standards review process with respect to the complaint.
That's correct. They will be advised.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you, no other comments?
Sad.
Would you like to move the item, Vice Chair Brillinger, seconded by
Sad
Member
Toronto Police.
Kostakis?
Very
All
sad.
in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Which brings us to 17. It wasn't 16, it was 17 that was the one that I held. And I have a very quick question here because we've already adopted the confidentials. But this is one where we find ourselves, we're going to have to be communicating this structure this year of all years when we're really dealing with contracts for all of them. And I don't know that we have before us who's in the SU, who's in the TPA, the org structure. We look at the titles of officers, but I don't have a clear list of what positions are captured in SU. And I'm wondering if is that in our, orientation
There's never any
materials?
details.
Because I've asked for it a couple times.
So certainly I can shed some light. I don't know which document it might be in, but for senior officers, it's effectively on the uniform side, it's inspector and up. And on the civilian side, there's a slightly different way to classify them, but it's, kind of the staff super EAs
Yes.
to, your senior planners, kind of like up, basically, managers,
Right.
directors. And then
Talking
outside
about
of that,
civilian
there
police,
are
in case you didn't know
about
about
10
civilian police.
excluded members, mostly board staff, but then also the director on the service side, the director of HR, and the manager of labor relations. That's excluded, and then senior officers. And then obviously command. We're kind of separate from excluded and separate from senior officers.
Sorry, and I'm writing as fast as I can because it looks like this piece of paper does not exist. Tell me who are excluded again? Yep.
All right, board staff, so I believe 10.
Yep.
Plus the manager of labor relations as well as the director of people and culture.
Oh, right, which removes conflict.
Yes,
Right.
and this is also defined in the CSPA in terms of who's eligible kind of to be excluded, who's technically a senior officer.
Right.
And the classification on the civilian side around what's considered to be a senior officer, it's supervisory positions and sort of positions that would handle confidential material, make decisions for the organization, things like that.
Right. So, for instance, we just made the new rank of chief superintendent. Does that move them into that area, or
So
they
the
remain?
chief superintendent is the existing staff superintendent,
Right.
and that is a senior officer role.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Like in terms of numbers, it's 110 civilian staff that are part of the Senior Officer Association, and about 74 uniform officers.
Okay. I asked these questions, and I'm not going to move a motion today. I think it's really an undertaking that we could do at some time. But it comes up when you get to a year when we're looking at compensation. But we tend to look at an org chart, and then we anecdotally discuss these things that they come up as they come up. But it's a lens that we don't actually have on paper in an orientation binder for board members. So we get here, and who are we talking about now? And I think it would be good if we had that orientation, because it's quite different from the
Yes.
org chart. It's a different way of looking at
It is.
things. And it definitely helps when we're having the conversation about trying to create an equitable approach between the various groups.
The multi-year hiring plan deck had a section on our workforce, but it probably does not fully address, I think, the labor landscape considerations that you have when looking at
Yeah.
all these different ranks. But certainly, we're happy to take away the creation of something to support onboarding.
Yes, it would be helpful, but rather than move a motion, we can maybe talk about it after. Okay, thank you. That being said, I'll move adoption of the public portion.
I don't know
of
if
that.
you can
We've
see
already,
why
adopted the in camera.
I've decided to
Seconding, all in favor.
start
Opposed, that's
streaming.
carried.
This is my first stream ever, live stream.
And that leaves, I think, the only thing we
I'm hoping to
have
cover
left
all the board
is the
meetings
last item that we added this
and
morning.
give you a
Yes,
bit more depth.
which is now, is it
depth,
number 19?
Sorry, a
I
bit
got
more
the number
in-depth
series right? Okay.
insight on what's
So
happening.
number 19, this is the one we added at 9 o'clock this morning. It's been included on the public agenda since that time, which is the added item on the authorization for the chief to participate in governmental advocacy on towing industry matters as a walk-on report to the public agenda. We introduced that already. Are there any questions on the matter? I just have a couple myself. Chief Demke, this issue is sort of live, and it's also been going on for a long time. So I'm wondering, just give us a sense of advocacy thus far. Is it a group of chiefs that have been talking about legislative help in this regard, or you've just each been doing it as your own one-ups?
Well, I do know there's been engagement with the Minister of Ministry of Transportation, certainly at different levels across the province. But I'm not aware of a bona fide collective effort, and I think this would be an opportunity to advance some of that.
Okay, and I know anecdotally because people have mentioned to me that one of the suggestions that you get when you go to advocate to other orders of government, they often say, well, why don't we just give cities the ability to license this? I don't know that that's an ideal situation at this point because, as was pointed out earlier, there's what looks like very criminal activity going on here. So it's kind of beyond the scope of what you would hand off to a bylaw officer. Happen if it was a municipal licensing regime. Am I right about that? That would
I think there is a discussion to have outside of any ongoing criminal investigative concerns that may exist regarding the tow truck shootings and the like. Around the regulatory framework. That may or may not be behind some of the individual incidences. So I think there's a conversation to have about the role of the municipality under the new legislative regime, which has been changed, and an opportunity perhaps to revisit some of that. And that doesn't suggest that bylaw enforcement is going to look after preventing some of the more organized criminality that we occasionally have to deal with. But I think when we look at the opportunities to exploit different elements of our society, there are bylaw considerations to help curtail any opportunities for exploitation of the system.
Okay, sort of a hybrid. Okay, those are my questions. Are there any other questions? Discussion? Seeing none. I think I put myself as a mover this morning, and it was Vice Chair Brillinger. Can't remember. It is now. There you go. All in favor of the motion posed, that is carried. Do I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Member Kostakis got her hand up pretty darn quick. All in favor, opposed. Thank you, members. Thanks very much. Thank you for the service. Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. Trying a board meeting. The public part wasn't very robust. It's been getting very small. I don't know. People have to attend these board meetings, and please keep attention to them. You see what kind of information and what's been happening, the weaponization of your city by self-proclaimed Zionists. So I don't know, people. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Stay strong. Yeah, that's it. See you on the next one. Stay tuned.